This is
That's
the
fair.
image. This is the image that I shared last night. That kind of just sticks with me. Land of the free.
Wow.
This is Los Angeles. I mean, this is it, Dina. Like,
I'm
this
scary.
is real.
This is real. Look, I grew up in Los Angeles. I was first born in America. My dad's from Malmo, Sweden. But I grew up here. This is my city, right? And so I see multiple riots, multiple, series of wrongdoings that the cops have done through the years. And, look, I remember being a kid when the Rodney King thing happened and not really having an understanding of what was going on, but just seeing that video impacted me because I thought, wow, that seems like really wrong, right? And, think about the fact that it's been how many years since then?
Yeah, I mean, that was 92, correct?
Yes, 92.
I mean, and we've learned nothing.
We've learned nothing. If anything, they've gotten more intricate in the way they handle things. I mean, the jammers that they're using on the phone, we got to find a way around that. I mean, you can't communicate with others. You can't live stream. And I don't think they're going to stop doing that stuff. If anything, they're going to invest in more technology in that direction, So we have to figure this stuff out.
So to end on a little bit of optimism, first I'll tell a quick kind of humorous story to lighten it a little bit. So how I learned about Rodney King, because in 1992 I was very young and I don't my parents would watch the news, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't have understood what so I didn't know about it when it happened, But how I found out about it, do you remember the movie Airheads?
Yeah.
Okay, so for anyone not in the know, Airheads was a movie with Adam Sandler, Brendan Fraser, and I think Steve Buscemi was the other one, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and it's a super fun movie. They're a band. And, I loved music I still love music, but I really loved music as a kid. So I loved this movie, and I migrated to it. And they take over a radio station. They have toy guns, and they're so angry that they won't play their demo tape. This was back when radio was still a thing that people listened to music. And so they held up a radio station to get their demo play, and it became this big thing, and you follow them through it. And at one point, they're like a big mob forms, right? And the people are on the band's side. They're like siding with the band. They're like, play the frickin' song. And people start chanting Rodney King because, it took place around that time. And it's kind of funny because there's one guy who doesn't know what that is. And he goes, who's Rodney King? And Adam Sandler character, who is the drummer, Adam Sandler's character just goes, he was that guy. And it was just a goofy moment in the movie. And so that, I looked up what Rodney King was after that because I didn't know what that was. And I was in grade school and I didn't know, so I looked it up and I learned about that, and that was how. So thank you, Airheads. Thank you, Airheads.
I mean, this is stuff that I think kids need to start looking backwards through, especially the young Gen Z Zoomers, I guess they're calling them. They need to know about the history of this. I actually I hunted down one of the original members of the Weather Underground. And interviewed him. Yeah, he spent 10 years in jail under FBI indicted by the FBI for fraud. He was basically making phony IDs for the Black Panthers to get them hidden, get them out of town, get them whatever. So that's what he initially got arrested for. But a lot of these kids aren't familiar with who the Weather Underground is or what some of the actions that they engaged in are. And I do think there's something you can learn from these folks, Yeah. I mean, they've been through it. This is a guy that planted a bomb in the Pentagon bathroom, right? Hardcore stuff.
Not just that, but, I have a lot of conversations with my parents, especially as of recent, and they're, they get it. Like they do for the most part get it. But, sometimes they'll also say well, these anarchists are being bussed in from other places. And I'm just like, yeah, what do you think is going on? You think that there's some random car that's we are the anarchists who want to destroy it's do you think that's what's going on? And I'm just telling them, I'm like, I know. Look, you guys remember when the media was bullshitting about the SDS? You know, and I'm not saying there were never any missteps there. Of course there were. I'm not saying there weren't. But still, the media did very much misrepresent a lot of those movements. SDS, Black Panthers, the list goes on and on. In fact, you know, like when you look at the media theory behind it, which this is stuff you and I do because we're big geeks. When you look at the media theory behind this stuff, you find out they've been following the same formula since the 1960s. Right. They had a formula. Todd Gitlin, the media theorist, laid this out. Read his stuff. It's very interesting. They followed a formula of trivialization and marginalization and then just trying to demonize it. They followed the same formula from the 60s to today, and nothing has changed. And I'm just like, look, you know, I mean, from Vietnam to the SDS to the Black Panthers, you guys knew what was going on then. The same thing is happening now. And it's Black Lives Matter, and it's DAPL, and it's Occupy, and it's the same thing. The playbook hasn't changed. The power structure hasn't changed. And unfortunately, institutional racism hasn't changed. That's the problem. And,
same problem. You know, and Matthew Steen, the guy I spoke with, he pretty much said that. And, you know, he got into a little bit, too, about how capitalism undergirds all of these things and how that was always the main driver for the problems, including the Vietnam War. And I think a lot of the kids don't realize this. The Vietnam War came out of colonization. This was a people fighting for freedom against their colonizers, right? That's what started this. And corporate America, business interests, corporate French, they couldn't have that. So if the playbook that we need to be really clear on is the fact that business interests, corporate interests, the plutonomy, the money and power in politics, the military-industrial complex, they all benefit from systemic racism, right? Mm-hmm. This benefits them financially. And until we really contact, that's not to say that you have to be a class reductionist. I don't think that's the argument here. The argument, and which should be clear to folks, is that these two things are intertwined, which is also why I see a real fall of empire right now in the United States. We're having moments where we're questioning whether or not our capitalist economy is really functioning, because if you are in a place where 2 months of less consumption is enough to devastate the economy entirely, maybe it's not the right economy. And the fact
and not only that, but let me also add to that real quick. If you don't have a government that knows how to support the people during that time, or just chooses not to, guess what? You have a government that's working actively against the people. And that's what we have. Our federal government is beyond saving.
100%. If they wanted to save capitalism, if they really cared about doing that, they would have instilled an emergency UBI, because they would have realized that's how you not let consumption dry up. That's you throwing a bone at the masses, even though it's not much, like $2,000 a month. But that is enough for the plutonomy to placate the rest of the environment and to continue doing what they're doing. But they've gone so far gone in their greed that they can't even see the reality.
They can't even see that.
It's so untenable at this point. It's shocking to me, really.
Well, when you pursue profit above all else, eventually you destroy yourself, and that is where we're at.
Yeah.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make